everybody. Welcome to the Sleep Among Stars Talkback stream. It is long overdue. I think we wanted to chat about this for a while now, but we finally gotten around to it. The holidays a while, what can we say? But before we get started with the stream and the talkback proper, I wanted to make a statement of action at the top of the stream, as we usually do. I and this channel stand against genocide and ethnic cleansing and support all the oppressed peoples of the world struggling against injustice, imperialism, and colonization. Free Congo, free Sudan, and free Palestine.
And hello, my name is Victor, and above the top of the screen, I would like to say I stand with the same ideals and add in that right now in the United States, we have laws on the books trying to be voted in to make trans people in public obscene. And trans people deserve to live the lives that they live in public and in private. And I stand against these laws that are coming on the books and work against them.
Absolutely. And Vic, do you want to introduce yourself and what you do and where we can find you?
Yes, hi. My name is Victor. I do a lot of stuff. But upcoming soon, tomorrow, I'm coming back on the 5e D&D actual play Mist Lost as Synarch, the Tabaxi rogue, who is getting all the party new outfits. And he's gonna be hoeing it. Yes. So it's gonna be great. And in February, we're coming back with Entre Luna y Sol Season 2, our Monster of the Week actual play on Cafe Cultivar, the flagship AP. And trust me, we're gonna have a very delightful and traumatic second season.
That is amazing. I'm excited. I want to tune in. And I probably will. But hello, everybody. I'll introduce myself. I'm ValiantDorian. I'm a ttrpg performer, Twitch variety streamer, GM, writer, game designer, you name it. I'm probably wearing that hat or beginning to. I'll be hanging out here, and you can find me all around the internet at ValiantDorian or at Otso SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure I just set you on. And tonight, as we've said, we're going to be doing a special talkback episode for our two-shot AP, They Sleep Among Stars, the first ever SpiritBear AP produced on this channel. I see that the Puckening has asked for a dice roll. I typically will not be honoring this because this is a talkback stream and I don't have my dice on me, but I will roll one just for you, Puckening.
I have this weird potion thing.
Yeah, go ahead, roll that.
Call a potion of fate.
Yeah.
So hold this in your fate. This is from Arcane Fae Creations.
This has got water.
I think there's. Yeah, it's got like glitter.
Oh.
And then so after it's a potion of fate. You don't know what you rolled until you turn it over.
Oh no!
I have no idea what number that is. Is that a natural one?
That's a natural one. Oh my god, that's so funny. That's your dice.
I'm very sorry, the Puckening.
That sounds like an excuse to be able to hang out.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you all for being here. Really appreciate how excited everyone is. But just a reminder, this is our special talkback episode, where we're going to chat about a few things. We're going to chat about our production. We're going to chat about the world building, as well as how to play romance in this particular in an AP format, which is going to be very fun. But if you are enjoying tonight's talkback episode, please consider donating and leaving us a tip. The funds raised will be distributed evenly to our tech producer and our guest, who is here, Victor. Use exclamation point donate in chat to support us. Thank you, Puckening, for your donation. I appreciate for your subscription rather. Thank you so much. Appreciate you. And
also, as we're pointing out,
yes,
that our captions have stopped.
Our captions have stopped? God damn it.
Yeah.
What's going on? Hey, captions. It's going on on the meets.
Whoa. There we go.
It's going on.
It just popped up again.
Huh, very weird. Captions has been very weird recently on meets, but I'll keep an eye on it. Yeah, that's very odd. I'm gonna keep an eye on it. Part of me wonders if maybe my computer needs more juice. I'm gonna turn up its stuff. All right. I'll keep an eye on it, folks, and also let me know if you notice any other tech difficulties. We really appreciate you keeping an eye out for us.
Yes.
Amazing. With that, I can throw away this little thingy away, and we can chat about They Sleep Among Stars. So Vic, let's talk about production for a little bit. Because this is a small team production. For folks at home, we were a team of 3 people. It was Victor and myself as the talent, as the GMs. But it was also the incredible C. Thomas as our production, and our producer, because at that time a computer was a toaster and could not produce, and it was just, I couldn't handle it at that point. And I wanted to ask you, Vic, like, how did it feel to kind of like be in this particular setup in a smaller team? Did it feel very different to other AP experiences you've had?
So usually, I would say that it felt very different up until my experience with Enteluneso, because I've always only ever been a player. I'm like,
Gotcha.
haha, I'm a player. I don't do anything. I come, I jingle my little gesture hat, and I
More
act
than
my
that.
heart out.
You do a
Oh, for
lot more
sure.
than
I also
jiggling
make people cry.
Yes.
But like,
Yes, you do. You're very good at that.
But so starting in Entelunisol, I was just like, oh, this is what it's like to be weighing a lot more than usual.
Yeah.
Usually I'm like, hi, I'm this guy. Here you go. I did it. And then I'm just like, okay, how do I... So I'm performing, but I'm also taking into account everything that's happening around me. I'm caring about the music. I'm caring about your reaction to me. Am I making myself understood? Am I working off what you're giving me?
Gotcha.
And so that part of working it, and like, again, caring about the music, caring about our time, making sure that we're giving each other enough time and not going over.
Yeah.
Like that sort of stuff. I was just like, I don't usually have to care about this. But like literally, like within just that month, like I was like, okay, I have to care about all of this. And so like coming into it, I was just like, okay, this is just it, but in a way that if I mess up, there's less people to cover me for messing up.
I suppose
You know?
so. There's more pressure in that sense, I suppose. I was gonna mention that it's definitely a more like intimate experience, because like you said, you know, you're typically in a larger team, so there's a lot of kind of like, I don't know, like muscle memory of like, okay, and my amount of time in the particular scene is now done because there's like 5 of us, right? So there's like a very natural like, ebb and flow, and having like a smaller team just feel very very intimate, and we do wear a lot of hats in this particular production, because for folks at home, Follow Me Down is a game where you have it's a 2-player game. It's GM-less, but it's GM-less in the sense that the other person kind of becomes a semi-GM in place. They become the world setter, the collaborator, and the facilitator in the game sphere as you move from book to book. So we kind of wore both the GMing hat and the player hat. And I wanted to ask you about that particular experience. Do you have a favorite part? Like, did you have a preference over one or the other in general?
I'm not gonna lie. Introducing some of those really rough scenes for you was very beautiful.
Thanks. It is appreciated.
Yeah, and especially because so I love playing. I would say that I love it almost equally. But there is something that I've always loved about introducing set pieces and bits, and sort of like giving them to players and being like, here, take a look at this, turn it over, and then show me what you're giving back.
Gotcha.
And when it like those moments are ones that I always treasure. So it's one of the moments that really comes to mind is how you felt when you entered the concert area and then everything had gone.
Yes, that was
and
terrifying.
you yeah.
that was frightening. I was like, I don't know what you're doing here, Vic, but I'm scared. I mean, I'll concur with you. I guess this is really like, wow, playing with GM's core. It does hit a lot different when you're playing with a table full of GMs. Let me tell you. But it is a lot of fun, I think, in this particular medium to be able to play the facilitator role, as much as it is to kind of play the play role. But I do have a slight preference to the setting up of the scenes for you as well, where I was scheming behind the scenes for like literally that week before we went live, where I just send you messages of like, hey, this might be involved, content safe.
Yeah.
And like, oh, here's the music, enjoy. And speaking of music, we chose our music, both of us, for each of our books, and I know you wanted to talk about like the music process. So what was your process to pick up music in this particular production?
So definitely what I was doing while I was preparing for books 1 and 3 and then 5 and 7 were so that first time for our first 2 books, I was like, okay, this is a scenario I want to put you in.
Gotcha.
And then I was like, okay, if this is a scenario I want to put you in, what music will help elevate the emotions that I want you to feel? So in that first sort of like moment, I wanted you to feel like isolated in a crowd.
Yeah.
I wanted you to feel the anxiety of meeting someone who doesn't like you.
Love that.
And
Love that.
and knowing that there's no real way to change that.
Yeah. Yes.
And so that's like how I chose the music, with that sort of back chatter in our first bit, and then that sort of like intensity mixed with that like sort of desperateness of like, I know that that Jericho wants to go forward, and I'm going to keep him back. I know he is desperate because he's like, yeah, I know he is desperate, and so I'm going to raise that anxiety level.
Yeah. Yeah, because like music's a great, like, I think you and I, Victor, are kind of like, because I don't know if we both knew this about each other before this production, but we're both very music oriented. That was like a fun surprise that I learned like working with you. I was like, oh wow, we're both same brain on this, fantastic. But like truly the experience of like, oh, very neat that you two have this kind of like ear for music, and the and kind of like having a little bit of like brain rot about the musics that we choose. And that was kind of the same process I did. Whenever I pick music, I always try and imagine all the scenes like a little animatic that's or an AMV on YouTube. That's how I choose music.
Dang, though. If Aki is still in chat, I have no idea who's in chat. Yeah. But if Aki's still in chat, she will know. In my Miss Lust game, I created a like music vibes thread that I was just like, here's all the music that I think about you guys, and then everybody took that up and started running with it, and I was like, yes,
that's so cute. I did the same thing for my Invisible Sun game on Friends Who Roll Dice. Soul's Confidant. I what song was it? It is, oh god, it is going to annoy the shit out of me. I'm gonna pull up my Spotify right now and find it. But it's an old song. I believe it's from the 80s. It is a very kind of obscure band. They don't get their stars, I don't think. A White Rabbit by Jefferson Airplane. It's a very kind of like surrealist vibe to the song, which I was like, yes, this is perfect for Invisible Sun. And we had like our like out of character chat in the server, and I would just be like, hi, I'm just listening to this song and thinking about all of you, enjoy, totally not daydreaming of an animatic or an AMV in my head as I'm listening to this. which is what I did for our particular stream as well. And for folks at home who weren't there for the live stream, so the music we chose is from a royalty-free. This guy's name is Kevin McLeod, and what he does is under like the Creative Commons license, he just says, hey, here's a bunch of my music, here's a bunch of the vibes. He's got a whole gallery of music. It's called Incompetech Music. And we just went through that, looked through all the different genres, and just plucked out the music that we liked. In fact, we chose the music for the trailer together.
Yes.
The kind of like almost wide open space sort of sound. It's like a droning sound and a like flute that comes in the later part of the music. Yeah, we chose that together as well. So fun fact for everyone at home, we both chose the trailer music for that. Amazing. So we talked about music and how much fun we had kind of like hurting each other as players and GMs. I want to like dive deeper into the idea of like the balancing act in terms of performance in an actual play of being GM and then player and then going back to GM. How did you find that experience? Was it challenging?
So it was challenging, but not in the way one might expect. So I really easily flow from thought to thought. And so that's where my ADHD helps me out. I'm just like
ADHD.
Two ADHD trans masks walk into a bar.
They both produce an AP. What crimes will they commit? Is truly the vibe that we are carrying in They Sleep Among Stars.
But what I found most difficult was to separate the desire to fix things.
Gotcha.
Versus and like you know, during my player phases I was like, damn, like I'm like thinking about what I was doing when I was GMing and what is coming up next. I'm just like, focus on right now. Because there's that sort of like ball you pick up and put down and pick up and put down. And I am a very reactionary player.
Okay.
And so I love to wait to pick up the ball.
Gotcha.
Right? Yes. As a GM, I think that's very strong. I think that's very necessary, you know, to let the players fill the space and then just and then continue the way it goes.
Gotcha.
Right? But as a player and as the only player, I'm like, okay, I am making the story. Like, you are giving me stuff to react to, but it's my job to push that in the ways that like make a story.
Yeah, and the driving force. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So I'm just like, focus on being the driving force now instead of being the reactionary force later.
Gotcha.
And that's the thing I think I struggled with the most.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I always felt like GMing for you. I always felt that you were very, very attentive, and I knew that like any details I threw at you would not be missed. That you are that attentive because of your kind of like reactionary playstyle, you would be looking for the opportunity and therefore more attentive. Which is why I was like, all right, I'm gonna say these few words, and Vic is already gonna I can already see Vic's face in my head of how he's gonna react, and then I could just be like, all right, and off they go. They're gonna have a fun time now. But yeah, it's the anxiety. It's the anxiety. I do agree. Like that is definitely one of the challenges. Is kind of like not occupying both headspaces at once, especially in a production and a performance standpoint, because we are performing for an audience, so we want the audience to enjoy our work and our performance. The part that I found difficult was kind of the urge to like, okay, to almost like co-GM at the same time, I guess, instead of being like in player performer headspace. Because I've co-GM'd a couple of times, and the feeling performance-wise of like how these scenes play out feel very similar, but they're not the same. Because I'm not necessarily like setting the scene. I am meant to be driving the force of the storyline. So I that was what I found most challenging about co-GMing and co-playing. And speaking of playing and being a player, how do you find two-player games, and how did you find this experience in playing a two-player game in this production?
So I love two-player games. I've played them for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
I've played single-player like games of like D&D, Exalted,
Ooh.
where I've had a GM sort of been like, I want to play, but I don't have enough players. I'm like, well, let me tell you what my undiagnosed DID will let me do.
Yeah.
It will let me inhabit 4 characters at once. And listen, if you it just turned into a story game.
Amazing.
It just had some numbers on the side. Like my
Exalted, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. My Exalted crew, I made it a whole Exalted crew of Solars that were gay and traumatized. And I was just like, you know what? I was playing 5 people at a time and just having the fun of the math of like, this is what they're doing, this is what they're doing.
God, the math would murder me.
Yeah, and so so I've been used to playing like two-player games since I started doing TTRPGs. Gotcha. Like even in my privacy and moving forward. And then when the world exploded and it became whatever the fuck it is now, I got involved with like a channel that's now defunct. Mm-hmm. And they introduced me to a lot of two-player, like actual made two-player games. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, oh shit, like I can play these. And like a lot of them like also doubled as almost like it like relationship builders. Right? And so I was in a long distance relationship. And still am.
Boy, do we relate. Two trans with ADHD who have long distance relationships. What Christ would they come?
I think that's why we have such great chemistry.
That's probably
but so I was in a long distance relationship, and it was already hard to sort of like feel intimate. And so finding those games and doing them together online were ways to like increase intimacy when we couldn't see each other in person. And then playing them in person later was like only like sort of like pushing that sort of closeness. Yeah, if you have long distance partners and you only see each other like a couple times a year, there's a game that I can't remember right now, but it has like Filipino art, and it's about
Filipino art.
Yes, and it's about like the person that goes off to war and the person that stays home, and God. Ow. It's so good. It makes me cry every fucking time because usually we play it in the middle of a visit where you're going home soon. And so you're just fucking yourself up on purpose. But also, it leads to really good spicy times, honestly.
Gotcha. I might have to try and look this game up because that'd be a really cool game to kind of like do a deep dive on. That'd be really fun.
I think it's by Jammy.
The music did start getting a little sexy as soon as Thanks, Hockey. This is a chill hop playlist. I have no control over where this direction goes.
I just have great timing, is what it is.
Yes, you have great comedic timing.
It's like This War of Mine or something like that.
No worries if you can't find it at the moment, but that's
no,
really cool.
that's a video game. That's not that's not the board game. That's not the TTRPG game. But it's beautiful, and I recommend it to everybody. Because it is very nice and about like helps you sort of like balance your level of intimacy, which I find is really cool and important in 2-player games.
Yes. Yeah.
Because you're trusting someone with a story that you're telling, and you're trusting them to like hold it and then in like work with you more, and that's a very intimate act.
It is,
at least for me.
Because like in typical TTRPG kind of gameplay, historically that usually means being in a team of like 4 or 5, 6 players, right, at a table with one GM. There's only so much kind of like attentiveness that a GM can afford each and every person, and often like even that kind of like focus and attention ebbs and flows depending on like what's happening in the storyline. Some folks might resonate more with like the core drive of the storyline versus in other arcs, for example. So being in a 2-player game where it's just the two of you is an inherently more intimate experience, and it is a lot of trust. Even games like Godkiller, where it's more kind of like combat focused and there's kind of like more action in it. It's still very, very intimate as an experience because there's like 2 people involved, right? And with this game, I feel like it's even more intimate because the premise of the game is we are playing 2 lovers who have been separated by fate and are trying to reunite with one another and see if our love will prevail, which is like, all right, this game is already intimate, let's make it even more intimate by throwing in tragedy and romance. We will talk more about what it's like to play romance, folks, but I do want to remind folks, if you have questions in chat, please feel free to throw them in. We will have an audience Q&A later, but I will keep track of all of your questions as they happen. So if you want to do that, feel free to throw them in chat. Amazing.
What was your first experience with two-player games? Yeah, like with like
Follow Me Down. It might be Follow Me Down. I'm trying to think if there's an instance before playing Follow Me Down with Mare. I'm trying to think. I don't think so. I think because the only other time where I kind of had like that like closeness in like facilitation was when I co-GM'd with Dax, and I think that's different. Two-player game, it's Follow Me Down. It was this game. It was Follow Me Down. It was our Invisible Sun themed Follow Me Down AP. For those of you who haven't seen it, you should. It's a pretty good game. Pretty good show put on by Mare and I, where we played our characters from our Invisible Sun campaign. Mare plays the love interest NPC of my character Ishmael, and it's very good. It's very devastating, and it is canon. It's canon in the timeline. It does happen.
Yes.
Which is great. So go and watch it. Go and watch it. It is oh god, what's the title? Hold Me Under Every Sun, I believe is what it's called. So go and check that out.
That's such a good title.
That title is from the spoilers alert for The Soul's Confidant. I've warned you. That sentence actually came from a spell in Invisible Sun that Ishmael cast close to the finale. It is a spell in which you take your soul and you house it in someone else so that if you die, they can revive you. And they need to know your soul name to do it. And you basically have like a code phrase. And it is a 6-word code phrase, and that was what I chose, was hold me everywhere under every sun. And that was what happened. And when Ishmael did indeed fall off a bell tower, and die, Kiran revived him, and it was great.
Damn, son!
It's a great spell. Invisible Sun is
Yeah.
wild. Invisible Sun is wild.
I
and you
love
should play
Invisible
it.
Sun.
The spells are wild because you pick up a spell and you go,
I
what the
did
what the
play
hell
it.
does this do? I summon the Spider Queen,
Yeah.
I turn really I create a jail in my hand. It's really funny. Anyway, that's we're going off topic. That's pretty much all I wanted to chat about in terms of like two-person productions. Are there any other aspects?
Well, I
production you
wanted
chat
to.
about?
Since Follow Me Down was like your first sort of foray into
Yeah.
two-player games, you know, like I'm coming from a place where like I've played so many, like I kind of have like this sort of like go-to attitude with them, but
You're like, bet intimate games, let's go.
yeah, cause I feel like when it comes to gaming, it's fun to make yourself vulnerable in a place where it is safe.
Gotcha.
You know, and talking to like our chemistry and you know how we know each other, like I feel very safe playing with you.
Same.
And so I feel very safe being vulnerable with you and accepting that vulnerability from you because I know that we've got like this level of trust.
Yes.
Right. But I've played two-player games where there wasn't that, and so I've gotten that experience of like, you know, that back and forth, and when it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So you coming from like a little bit less experience.
Yeah.
Like, what's something that surprised you about like two-player games that you didn't find in like other games? You know?
Ooh, what surprised me? I don't know if this is necessarily like, I don't know if I found a lot of things surprising, but I think I guess the thing I found surprising was like my capacity to be vulnerable in that way, because I think like as a performer there is kind of like a set expectation of like, we talked about this before on the channel, of like, you know, bleed, and about like character bleed, performance bleed, and how it is a tool. Ultimately it's a tool. It's not bad, it's not good, it's a tool, and you have to manage a tool effectively, just like a knife is a tool. You gotta manage it correctly or you might hurt yourself, right? And I think there's always kind of like this trained response in my head of like, all right, here's where like intimacy should probably end, or like vulnerability should end in a performance, because I've not really been in that much of an intimate space. So I've never like ventured there as closely. But what surprised me in doing Follow Me Down with like Mare, for example, was my ability to realize, oh wow, I can go into that place, and I can manage that really, really well. And I think that's what surprised me. The thing that I wanted to get into actually was the idea of like the story. The thing that like really got me hooked, I think, on the two-player games is like the stories you can tell is just different. You can't get that kind of like intensity, I feel like, without having that kind of like trust at the table. And I think that playing two-player RPGs has made me a better player in other group RPGs, because now I go to those tables with a like, hi, I am this confident with myself, I'm like this comfortable with vulnerability and with drama and intensity. Like, let me help facilitate like everyone else in building that kind of story together. Because I can tell you for now, like doing They Sleep Among Stars and Hold Me Everywhere Under Every Sun has made me go into games like Chaos Protocol for Transparent RPG, where I'm able to like, all right, it's 3 of us instead of 2 of us. We're the 3 players. We have our dramaturg, who's C, and our producer, and we have Connie, who is our GM. And we've created such a trustworthy, comfortable table with one another that I was able to kind of go like, all right, I trust these people as much as I trust like Victor, and as much as I trust Mare in that game, right? So I'm able to kind of like, all right, now we can get into some delicious drama that can happen in a multiplayer game. So that's all to say, you know what, y'all? 2-player games is not just an isolated medium. There's kind of like more to it than that, and it can also inform how you interact in other things. Amazing. Did I answer your question? I feel like that was a very roundabout.
Oh yeah, I definitely I think that's really exactly what I also feel about 2-player RPGs. They are a way to sort of like find your footing,
absolutely.
And I feel like it very much translates to other played games.
Absolutely, no, I agree. Because 2-player games, we're going to talk more about like safety tools and safety and romance, but I will say this: 2-player games kind of force you to be good at communicating. They force you to learn how to use safety tools. Not just, oh, these safety tools exist. No, they force you to know how to use them, because no one else is going to voice it out for you, and you enter into the game knowing that. So if you need to like advocate for yourself for like lines and veils, or for any other like aspect of safety, you are going to have to take the initiative, which is what I tried to do when GMing for you. Like, there were, I don't think I asked you in the first session, but I think when prepping for the second session, I double checked on some safety stuff. Because I don't have the virtue of like other players to be able to kind of like remind me and stuff like that. No, I had to get that answer straight from Victor. So I'm like, all right, instead of leaving it up to chance on the day and hoping that it's fine, even though I had like a gut feeling that it would be fine, I had to take the initiative and be like, hey Vic, how you doing? By the way, not without spoiling anything, this is kind of like the vibes we're going with. I believe it was with your doppelgangers. I think that was the one I was double checking.
Yes.
On.
Yeah. And I think that was the time where we had to like, I think I got the most check-in like questions during that moment.
Yes. Because that's you have a responsibility to each other, right? It's just the two of you at a table, and like,
exactly.
I have a responsibility to you to facilitate a game that doesn't seem harmful or hurt you, and at the same time, like, I have a responsibility to also ensure that at every juncture that you are safe in that regard, right?
Exactly.
So like, play 2-player games, y'all, because it will actually enhance your ability in so many aspects of gameplay, and not even necessarily just for an AP context, just gameplay in general, because my god, it teaches you communication. What do you think about that?
No, I totally agree. And I think it brings it down to like those safety tools again, especially when you're talking about like relationships.
Yeah.
In like just in general, like friendships, romantic relationships, your family dynamics. These things have such ways to like intimately speak to who we are as people.
Yeah.
Right? And so handling them with care is so important, especially because we had moments where we were talking about our families.
Yes.
Where that was one of the check-ins that I had with you, which was like, hey, I'm gonna bring in your parents, and it's gonna be a situation.
Bring your parents.
Yeah, like, how do you feel comfortable about this? Like, I know that we talked about like how your character feels about his parents, and so I'm just like, let's make sure that we go to a place it was realistic. It was a place that was tough to be in, because people have been there, and so that we only had each other again, like you said, we only had each other to rely on in that moment, and being the person that holds it is just as important as being the person that like receives it. So like, you as a GM for this other person has to also be like, hey, in this moment, are you in a place where you can communicate effectively with me?
Absolutely.
And so like that part of communication is also very, it feels very hard to like learn naturally.
Yes.
And so I feel like games like two-player games sort of really help with that.
Yeah,
because it's just like, oh yeah, I it's an active communication.
Mhm.
I pick up what you might not be able to say in that moment.
Absolutely, no, for sure. And like this is tangentially related. If you are thinking of being in a production or like producing your own production of any sort of AP, your producer safety tools should also be considered. 'Cause
Yes.
like yes, we were talking about how us as two players, two GMs are interacting with each other, but like one of the main things we did in pre-production was having a Google Doc of like for the session 0 safety tools, where we literally were like, hey, see, fill out your lines and veils and let us know. And we both were aware of all of our producers' lines and veils as well, and being cognizant of it. Like, so also understanding that like safety tools isn't just in play tool, it's also like it's safety for each other. It is a way to kind of like communicate effectively, create safe railroads for us to get into like difficult but interesting topics. But at the same time, it's a production tool, and it should be used because it's a production tool.
Yeah.
Amazing. Do you have any other questions about production in general before we get into world building aspect of this?
Not me.
All right, gotcha. Amazing, folks. We're about to jump into world building. So get your question. I've been noting down everyone's questions, so feel free to keep throwing more. Just for the folks at home, Follow Me Down is a 2-player game specifically about the myth of Orpheus and Eurydice. Take care, Arky. We love you.
Thank you for coming by.
Thank you for coming by. But yeah, so we are in a game with a very specific piece of lore and a very specific setting. It is Greek tragedy, Greek underworld with Greek protagonists, right? Of Orpheus and Eurydice. And I wanted to chat about kind of like our choice to step out of the narrative. What was specifically going through your mind, I think, about like trying to do something different instead of the traditional Greek tragedy of Orpheus and Eurydice?
The thing that I think people love about Greek tragedy and mythology is that it is so easy to translate. Because the reason that these stories continue to be stories is because they're about the human condition.
Yes.
They're like we have stories about all over the world about fighting against death and bringing back loved ones and
that's
failing.
True, actually, yeah, that is that's cross-cultural actually, because we have stories about that too. That's true. Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
We have there's Incan stories about it, Quechuan stories about it, and it's just that right now, of course, Greek stories are easy to get. They're easy. They've been written down for so long, right? And so when you sort of like look at it, you're like, okay, well, this story has been told, and they'll tell it again and again. Ha 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 ha. But when we get a chance to do it, when it's folks that might not have that same perspective, there's always ways to translate it so we can see our views.
Yes.
And that's like we could tell a story about Orpheus and Eurydice, but we could also tell a story about things that are close to us that still hold that and together. And so that was the whole thing I had in my head the entire time. I was like, how can we twist this to be about us?
Yeah.
Right? How can we twist this to be a story that holds folks that aren't that in the narrative?
Yes.
But still sings to the narrative that we tell over and over again.
Yeah, I was the same way as well, because I had already done one production using Follow Me Down, and we didn't we had the some flavors of Greek lore, but only because Invisible Sun, as in their world, in their setting, has some Greek stuff like thrown in because it's a surrealist world,
Mhm.
right? But ultimately, I just that was just a lot of fun to kind of like see the structure of a game and go, great, but what if I make it about my Blorbo instead? And have
Exactly.
a great time about it. And I really enjoyed kind of like I remember pitching it to you where I was like, we could play Orpheus and Eurydice, and this is kind of like the structure of Follow Me Down, or we could make our own thing about it. When I was basically like batting my eyelashes suggestively over Victor during our call was basically what was
Listen,
happening.
it works. It works every time. I'm very persuadable.
And you were like, yeah, why don't we just do that? I'm like, great. I was like, that sounds like fun. Let's do that. And not only did we choose to kind of like step out of the narrative whilst kind of maintaining the structure in that sense, um, I think we chose a very kind of like almost out there idea of like a sci-fi rendition of this particular setting. And I'm going to tell everybody here that that was mainly your idea, actually, the genre and that kind of setting. So talk to us more about kind of like your thought process of choosing that genre and that setting for our game.
So I'll be honest. What was that stupid thing that like men are always thinking about the Roman Empire?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I,
yeah. Is
I'm like,
space your
that's not a
Roman
trans
Empire?
experience.
Is that what
So
this
not
is?
particularly space. Um, but the science fiction in
Mm.
general. While we were talking about that, I had been replaying the Mass Effect trilogy.
Ah.
Because it was my first big like Western RPG. That I got to be like, my Blorbo is doing the choices that I want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had science fiction on the brain,
Mm.
right? And I was just like, well, how can we make like the thing that was rolling through my head is like, all right, so this is a very, the story is character goes into a hostile environment
Mm-hmm.
made to keep them out,
Mm-hmm.
while other character goes through hostile environment made to keep them in and are experiencing same but different.
Gotcha.
So where do we hold that? What sort of technological advancements do we dream about as humanity,
Mm-hmm.
um to like that we can still see as modern tools and modern storytelling?
Mm.
And that's what came into my head of like, oh, the thing that people always like talk about is like keeping your mind awake
Awake.
during cryo sleep,
Yep.
keeping it active. I had just watched Captain Laserhawk,
Mm-hmm.
which is on Netflix.
Okay.
It is extremely gory, so I'm gonna
Gotcha.
give a content warning for that.
Mm-hmm.
And very it's adult animation. It's very silly, but
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, it's got like this bit where people were used to generate electricity by being put in mental prisons,
Stairs and
and made to play
psychopaths.
yeah, exactly, and made to play games which were them
Mm-hmm.
like actually running like technology with their own minds,
Mm.
but for them it was just prison and awful.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. Gotcha.
um and so that's where that idea of like, oh, what if it's like a mental thing
Mm-hmm.
that we are doing. And then I think, was it me who came up with the idea that the fuck up is that because
Yes.
we weren't supposed to be here?
Yes. 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 Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Uh, yes, you did, because I'm not very like I love like space opera specifically, but that doesn't mean that I'm a sci-fi nerd. I'm not as well learned in sci-fi as I am about fantasy. I'm a real Lord of the Rings fanboy. I'm a real Dragon Age fanboy. My only wish is for both of those IPs to lean into racism less.
Yes, oh my god.
Jesus. But like the idea of like a lot of these kind of like sci-fi tropes I was unfamiliar with. So when you were like, hey, yeah, like we could do this and this and this, and oh, and this tech will function, it'll make sense for like Jericho to because we were building our characters kind of like simultaneously, and I was like, I kind of want to play a fuck up, and you were like, great, fantastic, we weren't supposed to be here, and then Jericho cannibalizes the machinery, and mind you, not sci-fi nerd. So when Vic said that the first time, I just was like, I'm sorry, he does what to the machinery?
Yeah, I remember that.
Vic had to be like, no, that's a sci-fi like term, and this is what that means. It means like taking machinery apart and like repurposing them was basically what that means. But I literally was like, taking notes, and I was like typing it up on our Google Doc of all the world building elements that we were building. And I was like, I'm sorry, this might be a very, very silly question. He does what to the machines?
It was not. And the second that I realized, I was like, shit, I was too much into the terminology. Let me come back up real quick before we take you back down.
But it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed kind of like doing something
Follow me down.
Follow me down into the Roman Empire.
Oh no!
It's so great. I really enjoyed it. It was actually kind of nice, to kind of like follow the lead of someone else, because like you were able to build that kind of like railroad and the like little barriers and bounds as to like what the tropes are, and that made me feel more confident as like a co-GM to go, okay, if this is the world, if this is the lore that I'm working with, then then these all are true and make sense, and I can like build from there. And I try to bleed that into a lot of our design in the overlays of like the reason why I picked Vaporwave, I know that's not sci-fi or necessarily like cryo sleep related, but the reason why I chose Vaporwave is because you have the design of something like computerized and technical, but it is overlaid by beautiful natural phenomena like stars or the sky or mountains, right? And I wanted to kind of like build that vibe of like, oh yeah, Santiago is in a world, but the world feels wrong and is not correct. And that was really fun. It was very fun to kind of like hear your ideas and go, I already have design ideas for how this is gonna look like in the overlay. It was awesome. I love the choice of sci-fi. And speaking of kind of like world building, because we had to world build together, as we were both facilitating each other's stories. I think we started off with like, this is cryosleep, and this is kind of like a virtual reality sort of world. And I wanted to ask like kind of your experience of like world building this with somebody else. How does it feel to like world build with like one other person as a GM and as a world builder in this particular production?
People who are on here probably already intuit it, but you are a fantastic freaking backing board, like talking like a what's the word? It's like a talking board, soundboard. That's what it is.
That is very because very nice to me.
I'm always nice to you.
You are, except when you hurt me in a game.
You
I asked
me
for
to.
It. I do. I'm aware.
So what I find when I world build with people who complement my thinking style, often, the soundboard, it truly is a reverberation and growth of the music that is our ideas. And this is very purple prose right now, but I promise it makes sense. I'm so sorry.
Don't worry, we're with you.
Yeah. And so I loved that when I offered ideas, you were like, yes, and let's scaffold off that, and we'll build this stronger foundation and build upwards and upwards. And I felt like we were doing that even as the game went on.
Yes.
Because there were aspects that you brought into our first session that I hadn't even thought of. And I was just like, man, you're so fucking big brain. Holy shit. Cause I was like, I was very much into the virtual reality, accessing your memories and throwing them back at you as almost like a taunt.
Yes.
And you were like, computers are fucking weird. Here's a fucking firewall. Yeah. Here's a goddamn administrator privilege. Let's go. And I was like, this is the most big brain. I didn't even think about it. And that informed how I went into and prepared for our second session. Because we were constantly building up and showing exactly like what was important to us. And so
I think we both respectively like knew the themes, I think, of like, because you had to make my boy really fucking suffer for it, and I think that was like the major way to do it, was like through memory and through taunts. Because I feel like if you leaned into tech, he would just be like, all right, this is just another tech problem. You leaned into a very I said something kind of, I think, on the lines of like, you're just a computer or something like that. Like, you're just a set of programs, right? And you heard me say that, which was, I did perform it in the sense of like Jericho genuinely felt it. I genuinely did not think you would take that as a fucking challenge of like, oh, this is now the theme. This is now one of your major themes of character growth, is we're gonna now delve into this interesting, like, murky discussion of like what makes something human and what makes something a computer or a robot. And that was really fun.
Exactly, because I found that one of the ways that you're playing Jericho, one of the major things of Jericho is trying to own up to his mistakes without tearing himself down.
Yes.
You know? And I was like, if you think that this is something that you can beat, it's tantamount to trying to hide the mistake you made.
Yeah.
You have to acknowledge that this right now, no matter what your reality truly is, this is reality, and you have to face forward.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted to bring out
of this particular world. Now you can't just because that's one of Jericho's whole thing, is that the way he deals with conflict is he sidesteps it and then walks forward, right? It's not that he runs away from it, it's not that he doesn't acknowledge it, he just like, it's kind of like Last Airbender, right, where they talk about Aang and how Aang deals with things, and his instinct is to always avoid. It's to always be clever about it, a little tricksy about it. And that's how Jericho functions as well, is that he's like, I'm gonna just pivot away and it'll be fine. And it's not, because some things you do have to just face truly head on. You can't sidestep this, bitch. You're gonna try, but damn, it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed world building, and I believe it was only later in our like world building phase that we came up with our AI evil robot.
Yes.
Like,
good night, Bucketing.
Good night, Bucketing. And yeah, like, how did you feel about kind of like the antagonist that we built? Our fun robot. I'm trying to remember the name of our fun little robot now. Oh god.
With the stars system?
The star system, yes, it is star. Yep.
It's like space travel and reanimation, I believe.
Yes.
Is what we chose.
Yeah. we were like, we need to give it a fun acronym, and you were like, space travel and
you were the one that came up with reanimation, though.
Oh, did I? I thought it was you.
Yes. No, you were the one that came up with reanimation, and we were like big-brained obsessed with it suddenly, because it was like, oh, we're dead. No,
because that's not one of my favorite things about sci-fi is the element of like, it was the AI the whole time. Like Aliens, one of my favorite like sci-fi horrors ever. We love Sigourney Weaver. And Alien, we again like one of the major antagonists, the person that's kind of like dropping the lead. I rewatched it recently. I can't believe I didn't see it growing up. Like he does so many odd things. It's actually very well written how many odd things he does. But you just don't notice it. But when you rewatch it, you're like, oh, you bastard.
I saw you.
I saw you.
I see you.
And it was fun to kind of like follow the trope in that sense of like, it was a computer or an AI. But I wanted to hear your thoughts about our funny little villain. What do you think of Star?
So, I love a good robot villain. I hate how like current tech bros have ruined our AI dreams. Of robots learning to love, or like this, robots learning to fuck up your life.
Or robots learning to gaslight, gatekeep, and girl boss is what we did. That's the Star we made. It's a girl boss.
It was just like, listen, no, I want this. This is mine now. You can't have it. And like, just the slow movement of like, oh, this isn't working right. And then like the way that something breaks in just that little correct manner that something new evolves in it, right? Like, God, it's kind of like fucking up poison. Yeah, because like sometimes you find out medicine can be derived from poisons by fucking up poison. I don't remember exactly which medicine it was, but there's a current.
That was a fucked up poison.
It might be Willowfine, which is like natural aspirin. That used to be for poisons. And then people were like, actually, if you do it less, oh look, your body pain goes away. And so like again, it sort of feels like again the way that things break out. Sometimes they move in such an unexpected way that you discover something completely new. And the way that we worked together on that always felt like really exciting. Of like, oh shit, okay, so it wants something. It wants something, and the star system wanting something already is like big because programs are not supposed to want anything. Programs are supposed to execute. And so like the fucked up notion of like fucking stars Jericho just being like, you're not good enough. Look at me. I'm the perfect version of you.
I'm the perfect version of you. Oh, that was a lot of fun because we were trying to personify the fates as well, because that's one of the aspects of world building we were trying to create. I think that's where Star came from. It was like we were like, okay, how do we do fates here? But yeah, I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed and the idea of like, okay, we're gonna have the perfect version of, because the fates are 3, and we were like, all right, we have perfect version of Jericho, perfect version of Santiago. That's again all puppeteered by the same system. And then we were like, what about them both? Because we wanted to be gay. And then we had the good, not the quote unquote good, but like the one who's working within Jericho and Santiago's best interests, I suppose.
I mean the one that, you know, it's rough when like the whole world wants you to fail. And the fates in that aspect are supposed to just watch. But in every iteration of the stories, they don't.
They don't. I was gonna be like,
they comment, they feel the same sort of passion that normal people and gods in the stories feel. There is a reason why in Marvel there's a Uatu the Watcher, right? And he is the worst watcher ever because he gets so possessed with his Blorbos. He's like, no, they can't. fail like this. And it's just like, Watu, you're only supposed to observe. Thank you, but you're only supposed to observe. But like, we as people are so so a quick and related tangent.
Yeah.
The passerby effect that people like to toot about psychology
Yes.
is false. It's false. It's not true. People will always strive to help. But there's so many like academics that are just like, people are inherently
evil,
uninvolved, evil. Man is so easily tempted. It's just like, yeah, and we're easily tempted by good too.
Yeah, there's so many experiments where it's just like, oh, look at how humanity like leads towards kind of like power trips and things like that, and I'm like, this is an incorrect experiment to be testing that. I'm sorry. Like,
yeah.
No.
And so, the idea that the Fates would just be observers was just like, no, that's not how it's gonna work. And so having them be antagonistic, but also having like that sort of like desire to see like, okay, no, I am a watcher that doesn't want to see you fail, and having that balance of it just felt like it opened up our storytelling even more.
I'm trying to think of like because there is an IP that was like tickling in my brain when we were crafting the star that isn't trying to fuck their lives up, and I just can't remember what IP it was, but I remember that.
Is it Tron?
Is it Tron? Was
Tron?
Was I thinking of Tron, where there's like an entity, but there's one entity that's basically it, but they consider it flawed? Is it from Tron? Oh,
I'm pretty sure it's Tron.
Yeah. That's probably where it came from. Because I remember in my brain, I was like, there's something in here that's tickling in my brain, but I haven't seen Tron in ages. So I probably just remember. But that was like a lot of fun to kind of build off of and build some interesting fates who are antagonists and also kind of like guides in the storytelling at the same time. And speaking of storytelling and creating things, let's talk about Jericho and Santiago. Let's talk about Jericho and Santiago. I want to ask you about how do you come up with your character creation process, and how did it lead you to make someone like Santiago?
When you wanted to be the goofy guy, I was like, this is my perfect time. This is my perfect fucking time. I can be an asshole.
Yeah.
I don't get to play. I don't get to play. I don't often feel comfortable enough with people when I'm starting to play with them to play an asshole.
Yes.
Because I don't trust that bleed not to like come out of game. And then like there was a game that I facilitated last year or maybe the year before, in which it starts out that your character is someone that let a lot of people down.
Gotcha.
And since I was playing that character, during the first episode I got dogpiled on, which was like good storytelling. It was great storytelling. Yeah. But like afterwards I was like, oh, this feels bad. Like I had like pretty negative bleed and I had to talk to the cast about like, hey, can we like lighten up like a little bit? Yeah. Like just for me personally, please. But it still sort of stuck with me like as we went through, and I was just like, there's only really one person on this cast that I knew, and maybe like I should have like talked it out a little bit more. But I was just like, no, I'm safe and I can be a gremlin, I can be antagonistic, and and so I came up with Santiago, and you're like, oh, I'm I want to play a fuck up. I'm like, okay, well, I've been in places where I've had to be the the fixer for fuck ups.
Yep.
And so I'm like, I know how to embody that.
Uh-huh.
And let's push it. Let's push it ahead.
Yeah.
And be like, don't worry about it, I'll fix it.
Yeah.
It's fine, I'll do it myself. And that sort of like attitude that sometimes leads to codependency.
Yep.
Of like, oh, if you're fixing everything for me, I can fuck up as much as I want,
Yeah.
no matter how much it drags down on you. But also, if I don't let you fix anything, how will you grow? How will you gain the tools to fix things yourself and feel confident in your fixes without having to second guess that?
Yep.
Because that sort of toxicity is rough.
Yep.
It sucks being the person that like people don't believe in.
Yeah.
And I've been on both sides of that.
Yep.
Because you care about these people so much. And then like knowing that they don't trust you and your decisions sucks.
It also becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yes, exactly. Because now you're doubting yourself. And so I was like, all right, this is an intimate game. Eurydice and Orpheus are flawed people.
Yes.
So how am I flawed to your person? And I was like, okay, so this is gonna be someone who doesn't let people help, someone who tries to shoulder everything all the time, and someone who hates themselves because of it. And I was like, these three core things are gonna make up Santiago.
Gotcha.
And that's what I built around that. And sort of like, where does this mentality come from? I know we talked about like both of them met at like an activist at like an activist like rally. And I was just like, and then that helped push like, okay, he doesn't accept help because he didn't find help before. He's a veteran, and he's a veteran, and he was like disenchanted with like all of it. And so like that's the way. I usually build from core themes out.
Yeah. That's really cool. When I was building Jericho, I remember I kind of like I kind of led us by being like, I want to play a fuck up real bad. And the reason why I didn't have like necessarily a huge process with Jericho. How I try and build characters for APs specifically is I think about what kind of like mindset I want to like embody, and I try to like diversify not only for like my portfolio and for my acting and stuff like that, but to just exercise a different muscle in general, just so that I'm not kind of like playing the same thing all the time and have all of them blend together. So I was already playing a version of a fuck up, and I'm still currently playing him. His name is Sayer on Transplanar RPG. Go and check him out. The misbeloved twin brother, the chosen one. But I was kind of like, I'm in my bastard era. I want to play more bastards. But I wanted to find different facets. So I was like, oh, playing a cheerful, kind of like endearing fuck up is very interesting, because there's kind of like this inherent amount of kind of like hand waving that happens a lot that can really create a really flawed character. Just because he's charming and cutesy, he gets away with a lot of stuff. And then from there, and then you build Santiago, I was like, oh, and then this happens. And then once I have like a shell of what my Blorbo is, I go to Spotify.com and I go and look up a bunch of music. Fun fact, the song Jericho by Aniko is on Jericho's playlist. It's a good song. You should go and...
One of my favorite fucking songs.
One of my favorite artists. They're incredible. But yeah, that's kind of how hearing kind of like a lot of like Santiago's sort of like flaws and stuff kind of like helped us build, I think, why they work so well together. Because not only are they flawed independently, and there is a level of toxicity, a level of like unresolved trauma and conflict and codependency, I think we were able to kind of go like, yeah, but when they're on the same page though, they are basically unstoppable, and they are a power couple. And it was very, very fun,
Mhm.
kind of like crafting, like, yes, here's how our Blorbos are terrible, but this is why they work. This is why they're together, actually.
Exactly.
Mhm.
And I find that so necessary in romance and APs.
Yeah.
Because often what is it? There's a quote by a theater professor that it's not really a quote. I heard it myself.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
he,
you're quoting
he
it.
made us look outside. Yeah, well, yeah, he made us look outside, and he's like, "Look, there's a tree, there's a bird, there's grass. That's life. Life is boring. The stories you're telling are not about life.
Yeah.
They're dramatizations." And so, like, in playing characters that are like romantically involved on an AP stage, more often than not, you're testing their bonds.
Yes.
And that can lead to people seeing a lot of negativity in these relationships.
Yeah.
And like people are like, damn, like and we're in an age where people like are like, oh, but that's so toxic, that's so abusive. Yeah, and it's just like, yes, but we're showing you the parts of the drama that make you watch it, right? But there's also, but then sometimes I feel like in modern like productions, not even just AP, but like in like movies and TV shows, they forget to show why characters are in a relationship in the first place.
Absolutely, it's one of my pet peeves, right? Because sometimes you just see a fucking couple in a show, and it's usually straight romances. Let's be real, it's usually straight romances, and you just go like, there's no fucking way on earth that these people stand each other to be in a long-term relationship. I'm sorry, I've seen this happen way too many times. This isn't it's not believable, and it's not endorsable, because something can be unbelievable but endorsable and like supportable, right? Like, one of my favorite, my book isn't here, but one of my favorite pieces of media right now is an incredible book. It's a Xianxia novel, a series of novels by Mo Xiang Dongxiu. It inspired a Netflix show called The Untamed, which folks might have heard. It is a boys' love show, and my husband and I have a book club where we're talking about this. And one of our favorite things about this, because we were talking about like gay media and straight media, straight gay romance and straight romance, and it's like, when you create characters that are real, that are flawed, that have an element of drama to them, like, everything they do becomes compelling. Like, yes, the romance is good, but they're not there just by virtue of the fact that they are like in a straight context, like a man and a woman in a coffee shop, right? Like, romance doesn't just happen, right? So in a queer context, you have to like be like, no, there's more to these people, right? It's not just by virtue of how society, the dominant society, works. We have to talk about how human emotions feel like, how romance feels like, and what keeps people together. And that series of books does a great job. I will say, I do recommend it. There are a couple of gory scenes in the book, very few, but there are some. And it is a little raunchy. There's some NSFW stuff in there. It's a little raunchy, but it's fun. I really enjoy it. That's all to say, like, I totally agree with you in the like creating these flawed characters, but also creating the bits that are like compelling, that makes you want to support them, that you want to see them as the underdogs, like subvert expectations and come out the other side. And like you said, there's a lot of shows out there, there's a lot of like productions out there where I'm like, God, I don't like either of you, and I find it very hard to support you in this endeavor, and I need you to be better. Please, give me something. Like,
you're giving not even crumbs.
No crumbs,
my love.
Nothing, crumbless. Giving nothing. Yay! Give us nothing. I'm trying to think of like a good example, but it's hard for me to come up with a good example, because usually if I notice a production is doing that, I like stop watching almost immediately. because I can't. I can't.
No,
I can't.
I'm the same. I just like God, I can't watch shows like that anymore.
Yeah, I'm
And
like, this time can be well spent doing and consuming other pieces of media than this.
exactly. And so that's yeah, and that's why I love romance and APs, because especially me, so a little bit about myself.
Yeah.
I am demi-romantic, demisexual.
Mm.
So I'm fully on the A spectrum. A lot of people wouldn't think that because I am flirtatious as heck. I'm very good at at acting romantic, because I've acted romantic a lot of my life. Because I'm like, this is how you perform it, and that's how it's supposed to feel, right?
Not the ace masking.
God, it's rough. It's rough. And I'm like, this is how you perform attraction. This is how you perform.
So many of my ace friends have told me this. It is a true ace phenomena, honestly. Like, it's something that society forces you into. You don't realize how like permeated in society romance and romantic and sexual attraction is in our like just living and breathing daily lives.
Yeah, and so it's rough, right? But then, like, when it comes to this, I'm like, oh, okay, so this is how my character feels about this character. And at this table, even though I might not feel these emotions, I need to know how to produce them with someone who's trusting me right now, right?
Gotcha, yeah.
Because romance is sticky. It's a feeling that's sticky.
Yeah.
It definitely just as deeply as like negative feelings can bleed, romance bleeds really easily, I feel. And so like emotions that are sticky with me, I'm just like I'm like, okay, well, you have to take care of yourself, A.
Yes.
And you have to take care of your friend, B. And you have to take care of the other people who are witnessing it.
Yes.
Because witnessing romance is weird.
It's
I don't know if that's just me.
No, because like we are voyeurs essentially of intimate acts, right? Not necessarily in an NSFW way, looking at everyone audience, not necessarily in that way, but in the sense that like, yeah, we are flies on the wall of like something, of like a lot of interactions that are normally not exhibited like in that way, right? At least compelling romances that aren't just banking on heterosexual acts of like affection to prove one's love. Right? So yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. That it feels kind of, when you think about it, it is a little weird, right?
Listen, it's like being at your buddy's house, and just like, oh, their partner's over, and they are like, they haven't seen each other in 2 weeks.
Yes.
And they're like, why are you here? But they're not saying that out loud because they like your presence. But at the same time, it's just like, why am I here?
Why am I? At some point in the hangout, you do ask yourself, actually, why am I here? I really shouldn't be. We don't feel that way when we're audiences to romantic storytelling, which is very interesting. Someone should write an essay about that.
I feel that way sometimes, but I think that's just because of my ace spectrum stuff.
I'm so curious to hear that kind of perspective as well, though. Like, we do look at the world and a lot of storytelling through an allo lens that I'd be very, very intrigued and interested to hear like an ace perspective, demi-romantic or sexual perspective on like romantic storytelling and like what all of that means, right? Like,
yeah.
We're being very academic about this.
Well, I also want to bring up, like, I am in my D&D game that's on Wednesdays. I am playing a demi-romantic asexual there, and who is polyamorous and has like, is starting to like fall for his party members. And so it is really interesting to approach characters at different levels of romance. Because there's a character who I am like, they are outright in a relationship. There's a pair of characters who are in a relationship that I have reversed. We saw you at the bar. I saw you guys at the bar. And I've just been slowly and very interactively sort of seducing both of them. There's another person who is just like, fight me forever, fighting is the best. And it's just like men go through intricate rituals to touch other men.
Oh my god,
but it's a woman.
my favorite. My favorite trope. If you love that, you should read the Grandmaster Demonic Cultivation, the book I just talked about. Because my god, is that so frequent in that book.
I love that shit. And so I put that with that character and another character who's extremely sexual. My buddy is like, we're gonna be best friends. Being best friends is great. And that character's like, I don't have friends. I have situationships. And it's just
I have situationships.
I would die for Aurora. I would die for Charmy.
What a chaotic little group we've got going on. That's so funny.
Oh yeah, but like, so approaching that's what I really love about playing romance in APs, because you can approach at several different levels, because romance is not a one flavor thing.
No, it isn't. It absolutely is not. And on like that kind of like framing of like romance and romantic storytelling, looking at different elements. The final question I'll ask before we go to break, because I do want to make sure we get up and stretch and do all those cool things. And you, audience, romantic storytelling have many different angles and very different endings. Follow Me Down as a game and as a system has inherent endings that depend on how many keepsakes you have at the end and how much harm you have endured throughout your journey. And I wanted to talk to you about like our preparation for those endings, so that everyone know we did plan for like what those endings would look like, if and when any of them should happen. And I wanted to ask like how you felt in that process of like coming up with different endings. Like 2 out of 3 are sad endings. I think there were like 3 options of endings, and it is Orpheus turns around and fucks up. They like Eurydice rejects going forward. The third ending is the good one, but they managed to get out of the underworld. So I wanted to hear your perspective about prepping for those endings with me.
Yeah, I think that games with multiple endings like that, kind of like Star-Crossed. If you haven't played Star-Crossed, you need to play Star-Crossed.
I read it when I was at Big Bad Con.
Listen, Val, we should play Star-Crossed. Okay. Listen, Jesus. All right. I've played Star-Crossed so many times, both in person and online. And I'm really bad at it in person because my hands are super shaky and they fuck up Jenga towers all the time. But listen, I love Star-Crossed. The online version is a little bit more accessible to your pals with bad nerves. But that one also has different endings based on when the tower falls. Yeah. If you're too good at keeping things together, you'll never fall in love. If you fuck up the Jenga tower too quick, you went too hard too fast. So in those thoughts, when I was thinking about like potential endings for this, I was like, okay, so these are the inherent flaws of our characters. How would we play into those flaws for each of the endings? And if things are resolved, what message are we saying about our flaws and how we choose to go forward if things end well? Because I might be wrong about this, but I don't like I feel like people are more excited for flawed characters to change and move than staying the same.
Yes, for sure. Yeah.
Like I love a guy who learns their character growth.
No, legitimate
change.
I'm sorry that I'm gonna keep bringing up the same fucking IP. It's because it's my current brain rot. It's my current brain rot. But literally, I just read a chapter where we just witnessed one of the protagonists, and he just, again, he goes on a quest for vengeance. And he does he takes a dubious path in order to do so, right? An understandable path given his circumstances, but it's still and we just have the scene where we're like, oh damn, he's in the deep end. Like, oh god, this is a little bad. And the chapter is immediately juxtaposed in the next chapter, where, brief storyline folks, you know this in like the first 5 pages of the book. He dies, the protagonist dies, but he comes back in a body that's not his own. He's not even reincarnation. It's a weird possession thing. But in like present time, after he's reminisced on all the fuck ups, we see him and he like grabs onto his love interest in the middle of like a waking dream, where he was like, no, yeah, take me away, like stop me from doing this, like take me back to your home so that I don't do what I'm about to do. And I was like, I love this shit. I love seeing this because it's character growth. We get to see the character like reflect in a moment, an instant moment that way, and we kind of see like that romance bloom, and we see that kind of like nice well-earned fluff after like witnessing the horrors that we have just witnessed.
And
yeah, I hear that.
Yeah, and so that's like what I wanted to lean into if we got a good ending. You know, if we were going towards like, okay, the way we have things, you know, Santi's at a point where he wants to try again. So we're heading towards that ending where they both get out.
Yes.
Right. But before that, I was like, okay, if we get the ending and I don't feel like Santi has earned that exit, right? Or if the growth was different, right? How you know, we talked about like how we would handle like, what if Santi stays?
Yep.
What if Santi stays? AI takes over his body.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of it.
Yeah.
AI, perfect Santi was gonna be like, let's go, bitch.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Santi. You did it. You saved me.
This is one of those APs where I was like, I'm glad we got the good ending. It's very nice and sweet. I wonder how it would have turned out, like especially like audience reception wise, if we got that ending, because that would have been interesting to see how that would have played out. But it was a lot of fun like prepping that with you, because I remember us like talking about this in our world building meeting, where we were just like, all right, let's kind of talk about the endings, like how do we want to do this, because a lot of this is very like Orpheus Eurydice coded. Is there a way we can like change it up a little bit? And I remember both of us, you were like, oh, what if Star takes over Santi's body? And I'm like, that is deeply wretched, and part of me actually really wants that to happen. Like that's how unhinged we are in our world building meetings.
Yes.
Is that we go, you say something emotionally devastating, and I'm like, you know what, that's deeply wretched, let's do it.
Yeah.
I'm co-signing this, absolutely. But it was a lot of fun, kind of like as a co-GMing experience, to kind of like co-sign a lot of the endings. I think it's something that should probably be an exercise in other TTRPGs. I think that'd be really fun to do. I'm just saying, I think that's really cool.
It's both safety tool and narrative device.
Exactly.
What up?
Yeah, it's a bargain. Buy one, get one free.
We're multifaceted.
Truly. Amazing. Now that we've covered world building, folks, before we get into playing Romance at the Table, which is going to be a really fun section, please get up, stretch, pet your pets. Please tell them Mr. ValiantDorian loves them very, very much. We're gonna do so ourselves. Grab some hydration, and we will be back the next 5 to 10 minutes. We will see y'all here and get those questions ready, and I'll lock them in. We got about 3 questions already, so we're gonna have a very, very interesting discussion later. And with that, folks, we'll see you in the next 5-10 minutes. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Hello, everybody. We are back with the latter half of our They Sleep Among Stars Talkback episode. Before we get started, I do want to remind folks that we do indeed have a tip jar. If you are enjoying the stream and you want to give us some tips, you can tip us on Ko-Fi. Use exclamation point donate to get the Ko-Fi link. The proceeds will go to Vic as well as myself in the 50% portion. Amazing. With that, the next section of our wonderful Talkback stream is we're going to talk about romance. We kind of been talking about it throughout the stream because the whole show is about romance. But we want to specifically talk about like playing romance at the table and that kind of experience. And I guess I want to start off with your thoughts about playing romance in a ttrpg AP space. Like, what is your experience? What are your favorite things about it?
I have experienced both, like kind of what I feel like is both sides, but it's multifaceted. But like, I've been in at a table where I had offered romance on the table and it had been accepted, but then it was just like, actually, I don't want to play this. I've been at tables where it's just like, this isn't really a romantic character, and someone is trying to get into romantic play with me, and and then I've been at tables where like no romance is expected, but actually the way that we've been playing, it's happening. It's romantic. It's happening.
It's so funny.
And I'm just like, and again, because of my, aromantic brain, semi-romantic brain, I'm like, damn, our characters are such good friends. And then after a game, a week before the next game, they're like, how do you feel about my character romancing yours? And I was like, huh?
Yeah.
Scooby-Doo noise?
It's so funny. Surprise Pikachu face.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh, I don't mind that at all. I just didn't think that was like a thing that your character or you are interested in. And they're like, oh, really? Because like my character's been flirting with your character consistently.
Oh my God.
And you've been flirting back. And I was just like,
oh.
What?
Yep. Yep. Oh,
yeah, and
it's so funny.
And of course, I've gone into games being like, we're in a relationship.
Yeah.
These characters are in a relationship, and that's what we're doing.
Yeah, it is so fun to play romance in TTRPGs. I personally really like it, even though I don't get the opportunity to do it a lot. Actually, I feel like I'm not necessarily like in terms of like my branding in the space. I'm not like the romance guy necessarily, right? I think.
Are you the romanced guy?
Not even like like a lot of my romance stuff are. I don't think any of my characters have been in romances that's like spontaneously happened. Which is or like while we're in game, a player later approaches me and says like, oh, I think this is romantic. Like, that's not happened. I think the closest that I've gotten to that is like when I played Voska in Transplanar, and my players coming up to me and just saying like, Voska's hot, and Sitlali's gonna ask Voska to be part of the polycule, and I'm like, oh, that's very sweet, but Voska is indeed monogamous and will let you down gently. That's like the closest I've gotten to that.
Yeah.
But most part, I think my experience with romance has been like Ishmael and Kieran, but that was pre-planned. Like, even before production, I was like, it started off with like, oh yeah, they're really, really good friends. And I'm like, actually, no, they're gay. Remove everything I've ever said. They're gay. And then it's all the follow me down stuff. And even with Sayer, a lot of this stuff that's kind of like the love triangle of like his sister, and Lumira, another player character, are in, were all pre-discussed, and were things that we were like, oh, this is how our character dynamics, and this is why it's a little messy, right? Like this is why it's a little messy. So I've not actually experienced the amount of like romantic storytelling where like, oh, this has kind of like naturally burgeoned and happened. It's kind of discussed beforehand. But yeah, so it's very interesting to hear like from your perspective the idea of like, oh yeah, things happen. They got, oh, by the way, our characters have been flirting with each other. Like,
No, again, sometimes that's me. Sometimes that's me. Sometimes that's like, haha, we are being friends and we are verbally fencing.
Yeah.
And not to sound arrogant, but I'm pretty good at verbally fencing. And sometimes that
You
verbal
really
fencing
are.
comes off as flirting, and I'm like, just like,
it's the gay experience of like the enemies to lovers, the like conflict to romance, like that's something we love. That's a very, very huge like gay trope that that I enjoy.
I mean, I'm writing not safe for work story anthology currently with my partner.
Oh, that's
and one of the big parts of the trilogy are two characters who think that they hate each other, or the other hates them, but there's like still that mutual respect and that sort of like realization of like, you're flirting with me? What?
That's so cute and so fun. I do love that trope so much. It's so funny because especially when like one of the characters is like so deep in it, right? Like they're so deep in the romance rabbit hole, and they are like, they just like stare at this person and they're like, you were flirting with me, and they're just like, I'm sorry, what? Were you not paying attention this whole time? It's my favorite. I love that trope so much.
And the reason why it's a trope is because it's real. Because I'm dumb as fuck.
Oh my god. I am shaking hands with you. My husband always makes fun of me because I'm like, well, you clearly liked me. I bring up like, you clearly liked me. So why did you let me bumble and fumble my way through 6 months before asking you out? Because you know we clearly had chemistry and we clearly liked each other. It's like, yeah, but you know, you're so nice that I just wanted to see you. I just wanted to see if you would have like the guts to do it. And I'm like, what? What? What?
What are our lives, Val? Because that has happened to me too.
We're just the same person. We were just like, we should probably interview our parents.
Separated
like,
at
what
birth.
Happened? Yeah, what happened? What's the war? We're two brown trans men, like with a penchant for romance, and apparently are also oblivious when people are interested in us.
Because people are so nice.
Yeah, people
are
nice.
So nice to me, and I'm like, what is romance? Yeah. What is friendship and what is romance? Where do the lines blur? People say that there's lines. People say that there's like a thing. Like, so there's a friend box and a like box and like an intimacy box. Yeah. And people said that they're separate boxes, but I'm a fucking Russian nesting doll of emotions. So I don't fucking know. They all exist together.
They all exist, and I guess it doesn't help with me as well because like a lot of like my sort of like my friendships are pretty intimate as well. Like I'm a very, very affectionate friend. So sometimes when it like comes out later of like, oh yeah, I had a crush on you, I'm like, you did? That would have been nice to know at an earlier point than now. You know? But and also I guess part of it for me is like, oh, how arrogant could I be to think that someone likes me?
Yeah. Yeah. And then when you tell that to like the people who like you, they're like, it's not arrogant to like think that people like you, and you're like, but everybody made me feel that way.
Yeah, exactly. Like, also socializing weird and hard. Neurodivergent brains. Let's go. Uh, but yes, we slightly went off topic there. Of like, yeah, romance and
Sorry.
storytelling. Yes,
Mhm.
we both had like kind of like different experiences coming into this AP, and but the good thing is that it was definitely in my comfort zone of like, let's plan out this romance. Let's like figure out
Mhm.
how this romance works. Why do they work? Why are they flawed? And how we expect the relationship to grow throughout this actual play. But I wanted to ask you, because you've had a lot of experience in playing in romantic TTRPGs. How does performing in romance and romantic storylines differ from like your other performances? And like, how do you, as a player or a performer, prepare yourself for like romance storytelling?
So the biggest difference that I find
Mm-hmm.
is that romance always involves a level of communication that you might not need or might not want in your other
Mm.
storytelling. Sometimes the drama and story comes from your unwillingness to communicate.
Mm.
And sometimes that drama comes into your romance storytelling, but there's also that sort of sense of like, well, um, a romantic arc ends in either a rejection of romance
Mm.
or a continuance of romance.
Yes.
So instead of there's for me, there's not an end
Mm.
to a romantic arc.
Mm.
There is a sort of like maybe like a background versus foreground, right? Uh,
Gotcha. Yes.
um,
Okay.
unless it ends, unless
Mm.
unless it doesn't work and everything like that, and that informs stories going forward.
Mm.
While other arcs for characters
Mm-hmm.
might have like strict beginnings and ends in their choices,
Mm.
right? And so if it has like and so you have to be comfortable going in for the long haul, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Or discussing where it ends with your other players
Mm.
or your GM if it's an NPC.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. No, that makes a lot of sense. Like a lot of romance, especially in TTRPGs, there's a lot of kind of like, hey, let's talk about this sort of we gotta be prepared when you're playing in romance. And how I find romance, I'm also more comfortable if we have like a structure around it, because in my mind everyone has like a very different perspective on romance. It might be subtle differences, but I feel like everyone has a different relationship with what romance, romantic gestures, all that looks like. And a lot of like performing in romance is not only like, I'm playing a romantic story and I'm playing this character who's in a romantic kind of like setting. It's also kind of like, I now have to perform as a performer, as an actor, in a romantic way that is the specific experience and the specific kind of like dynamic that not only this story is telling, but the audience are expecting. Because like, for
Mm-hmm.
example, our romance is very very different. It's this kind of like two flawed characters find growth and see if their love can prevail amidst that growth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is different from my earlier Follow Me Down AP, where we had, it's more wholesome. It's very much like star, not necessarily star-crossed, but it's more of like, circumstances have failed us and now we will forge our own fate forward. Because actually Ishmael and Kieran didn't have a lot of like character depth. It was more of their relationship, whether their relationship could sustain it rather than themselves as people could
Mm-hmm.
sustain the pressure, which is inherent. Like that dynamic in terms of romance is inherently different from like what we were doing. And even with Sayir in Transplanar, or Voska's about grief and losing a loved one, and what that romance, the lack of like a romantic partner, and how romance endures. Whereas in Sayir, it's all about like, what does love mean? I won't say anything more than that for spoilers. But what does love mean?
Baby, don't hurt
Baby,
me.
don't hurt me. Wow, that is Sayer's song. Damn. Incredible.
Good. You can go back to the crew and be like, Victor gave me a new song.
Yeah. I was like, wow, this is our whole crew. Someone needs to draw art of us in a car listening to the song and bobbing our heads long because it's all our characters. So good. That's awesome. It's performing in romance is just different. It is different. It's a different. You can't go into it and on a performance expectation thinking it's gonna be the same. Like even as an actor, like it's an inherently different scenario. And in the performance headspace, people like to talk about this thing called chemistry. What is chemistry? What is and this is not just a ttrpg thing about like table chemistry and stuff like that. It's also about like actor and actor chemistry. We all know like the Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, like they have incredible chemistry, right? So I wanted to ask you, what does finding chemistry mean, and what does like good chemistry or bad chemistry look like in a tabletop AP specifically?
So for me, good chemistry comes from a place where you build, right? You can build as much as you want, but the thing is, if you're building alone, it goes from being fun to a burden.
Gotcha.
Right? So a lack of chemistry, you can see that like sort of like it's kind of like when you come to a friend and you're really excited about something, and the difference between like, oh, I'm not interested in and like, oh, and asking you thoughtful questions and asking you, like that sort of like even if they're not knowledgeable, or even if they're like oh, I wouldn't usually think about this, that sort of like interest that you find and build. So table chemistry and like just actor to actor chemistry is like interest in what the other person is doing.
Gotcha.
So I have this theory that I one day want to write an essay about.
Oh yeah.
That there are like levels of role playing, right? So when you start role playing, you might start at level 1 where you're like, I care about myself and I care about my character. My character is so cool. And then throughout being a level 1 person, you're like, why isn't anyone caring about my cool character? Why, like, I don't care about your characters, but why don't you care about mine?
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh, it's because I'm only caring about myself. Right? And then you graduate to the next level. Level 2, you're like, okay, I'm starting to like offer up ways for you to get to know my character. Yeah. Other than being cool. But I'm still not interacting in your story. Yeah. So it's hard to like, we've known that player. Yes. Right? Yeah. That they're like, be in my story, but I won't be part of yours. Because I'm focused on me. Yeah. And then you grow to the next level and you're like, oh, I'm interested in the way that your character interacts with my character. Yeah. Your story and mine are woven together, and I have to give so that I can take. Yep. Right? And that's why I feel like a lot of people like sort of sit, and then like I feel like great chemistry starts when you are instead of like having that mindset of like exchange, but having that mindset of like encouragement. Yeah. And excitement. Gotcha. Yep. And so like great chemistry comes from being excited about the other person. And that's my theory.
That's so interesting, because a lot of discussions, bless you to my brother, who had the loudest sneeze I've ever heard, because I've got noise canceling headphones on. Bless you, brother. But that's so interesting, because your kind of explanation around chemistry talks about chemistry as a mutable form. It's because a lot of times when we talk about it as like, you either got it or you don't, especially in like acting in like film and performances, right? It's like, oh, in Bollywood, Shah Rukh Khan and Kajol, they've got it. Like in Hollywood, we got Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan, they've got it. So it's interesting that you frame it as a mutable thing. So do you believe that chemistry can be built? Good chemistry can be built?
Yes, because working in an AP space, sometimes you meet people for the first time and you're like, well, I don't know you, so I'm guarded against you. Yeah. Right? And in that growing of trust can grow chemistry. And I truly believe that. Like things I am like sometimes your gut's right. Sometimes your gut's right. And you're just like, I am not gonna get along with you. And I have signed on to this 12 episode thing, and you were so cool in the beginning, but then you're now like, oh god.
Yeah.
And so that can be rough. But then in that same place you can be like, but on the other hand, these 3 players, well, I'm like, I don't know you, is grown into like, we can finish each other's thoughts. We're moving forward. We're like building scenes together, and damn is it fun.
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah.
No, I like thinking of it like that, because I in general am not a huge fan in a lot of like static like frames of thought, static thinking when it comes to anything like this. I think any skill can be learned, it can be honed, and including chemistry. I do think it can be, because kind of piggybacking off of your point, I believe chemistry is a trust exercise first and foremost. It's about whether or not it is a measure of how much these 2 people trust each other in a scene, and that's what makes it real. What makes it real is because it is, in a way, right? Like we believe Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan in You've Got Mail because they feel real. The way that they're acting against one another feels real and grounded and familiar, and because it's familiar, we resonate with it. And that's, I think, what makes good chemistry, is that kind of trust. And trust can be built. Like you don't start off always, like sometimes it happens. Sometimes you capture lightning in a bottle, right? And like for me, that closest to that experience would be like when I played with you in Flower Court in our table. It felt like lightning in a bottle. When I first met C and Hamna and CJ, and Pen of Smiting in our For the Queen game, which is one of my first few APs I ever did. That felt like lightning in a bottle as well. And sometimes you get that, but sometimes you're like you said, hi, I just met you. We're still kind of like figuring each other out and like figuring out what the vibe is. This is going to be a journey for the both of us, and then we'll get to a point where the chemistry gets interesting, and it can be built. There was a point I wanted to make as I was talking through all of that. People should do more false starts in their APs, is what I think. That is my hot take. If you're doing a long-term campaign or a longer-term mini campaign, have a false start. Let people feel each other out, instead of throwing us into like a session 1 and hoping everything goes together. Like I think that it helped with Chaos Protocol having a false start, because like we were able to start session 1 with like, okay, I know exactly how you think, Kai, or like I know exactly how you think, Sam, and we were able to kind of like jump into it and have fun with that. It was a lot of fun. Have more false starts. It's great. Amazing. So that's on chemistry, and we kind of brought this up several times throughout the stream of like safety, trust, and all of that. And we've heard it in every single piece of discourse about safety and safety tools in TTRPGs, but also about safety in romance, because a lot of kind of conflict that we notice in the space does stem from typically either an agency or like violence based storytelling, or in a romantic sort of storytelling setting. and I wanted to like hear
Mhm.
your thoughts about like what does it look like to build a safe table for romance, and what are the concrete steps to take to build that
Mhm.
safe table.
It all starts at the very beginning. You have to lay out um your volume meter of romance, because I feel like romance is kind of like there's an essay that I read in Splat.
Mm.
um I think it was the one that I was involved in, which is like literally about like romance essays
Oh,
about
oh yeah, yeah,
ttrpgs.
yeah, 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 yeah. I remember this. Yes, 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 yes.
Yeah. And well, mine was like, my essay was like radical honesty in RPGs,
That's what I was like. Yours
because
was about like being like sincere and honest, and I was like, yep, yeah, yeah, yeah. I was like, I remember your essay. Yeah, yeah.
yeah. And I think it was Kappa Chris
Oh,
who wrote an essay about like
love him.
exactly the levels of romance you can tailor for different people at the table.
Yes.
And so it starts at the very beginning,
Mhm.
where you're like, where is this volume knob? How high are we setting this volume of what you want to see at our table?
Gotcha. Yeah.
Right? It starts with the discussion and continues throughout your entire game.
Yes.
You know? It's not a discussion that ends in like a lines and veils sheet.
Yeah.
No. it's a living, breathing thing, because you are doing a living, breathing improv session.
Yeah.
Sometimes for
Exactly.
years.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. And things
Mhm.
change. And I think that's
Exactly.
it's something that I talk about a lot and not just safety tools in romance, just safety tools in general. Just because you have the tool doesn't mean you're gonna mitigate every single thing that's ever gonna possibly happen at your table. That is an incorrect way of looking at it. It is a tool. A tool needs to be used, and you need to use it, right? And using it means having discussions. It means like, okay, if someone has a line or a veil around like certain ways affection looks like in romance, asking questions, because it's likely that your definition of what you think that line or veil means and someone else's is different, right? Like for example, removing the romantic context, if someone puts spiders in lines, right, that doesn't necessarily mean the existence of spiders. For some it is, but sometimes folks mean, oh, movement. It's spider movement, or it's spider descriptions, right?
Imagery.
Right? Like that's, but you're not gonna get that if you don't interrogate that, if you don't ask people with an open heart, open mind of like, what does that actually look like to you? And the same thing of like what you brought up with like Kappa's essay, like learning about different volumes of romance for each person at the table. You gotta ask questions, buddy. You can't like expect that answer to kind of just fall at your lap. You have to ask what everyone's volume is and what that volume means to them. Like I don't imagine that I'll be in any AP, a romantic AP with like extremely raunchy or like NSFW stuff on it, unless that table is a hand-picked table of all the people I trust extremely.
Yes.
Right? Like that is the only caveat I will have to eat to doing something like that, right? But like but that's already like a volume of like, I don't think I can get too into that kind of like raunchy territory with just anybody. Right, so that's probably a line for me. And how do you think is the best way to kind of like facilitate those kind of conversations about like kind of, because we talked about this, like playing romance and like romantic storytelling can be kind of difficult, right? It can be kind of awkward, right? and yeah, because it's like it's that same feeling of like, oh wow, my friends are together and I am here. Right? So how, as a GM yourself and as a player yourself, how do we facilitate this kind of conversations about APs without it feeling like this huge thing to kind of like surmount?
I think it's definitely a conversation of, so once you know what, you have to ask your table, like, how much romance do you want to see in the game?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what level of relationship,
Mm.
like, interest do you see? Because if they want it to be something in the background, right, you're gonna spend maybe 10% of your time or less, like, talking about the romance, but bringing it up as like a little spice, you know, like, like, hey, we're gonna introduce something. It's very light.
Gotcha.
You know, you don't use a whole 3 tablespoons of nutmeg.
Yeah.
3 tablespoons of nutmeg,
Ugh.
right?
Yeah.
But
yeah,
like
yeah.
if they but again, at the table of like, oh, we're actually really interested in our interpersonal relationships, and like and this applies to all interpersonal relationships, not just romance. Like, if you want to see conflict, if you want to see everything, the way to introduce it is like, what level do you want this? What percentage do you picture in this pie chart of a game? What level of pie do you want?
That's a clever way of framing it. Yeah, making it like a pie chart of like, how much percentage do you want this to inform your experience? Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And then you can also figure out like your different player feelings too. Of like, well, I was thinking, you know, I wanted like a 30% romance pie, but this person wants like less than 5%. So you know, that way you can sort of you know, find like, okay, so as a table, we're looking at, you know, there's people who want very little, there's people who want a lot. Where do we find the happy medium?
And like, what does that 5% mean? Is it like 5%
exactly
you witnessing romance, or is it 5% you playing romance? Because like that again, it like the number of times, literally every session 0 I've ever been a part of, like there's so many questions people could be, the facilitator could be asking, or I could be asking as a facilitator, when people list things in lines and veils, like descriptions of oceans. Okay, what specifically about descriptions of oceans, right? Like romance. Okay, but what kind of romance? Is NPC romance fine? Like, do you want NPC couples to exist, or is that they're fine but you don't want to like see any like romantic affection? Like, there's a lot of questions you can be asking at any given point to be clarifying everyone's boundaries, for sure, and people will appreciate it.
Yes, I truly believe that. And then, but sometimes it's difficult to approach it because, again, like you said, it feels so big.
Yes,
it feels like especially as someone on the ace spectrum, sometimes it feels like people feel like it's the end all be all of like the discussion.
Gotcha.
Right? But for me, it's nice. You know, it's cool.
Yeah.
But like, I really want to talk about my character's parents being missing for like their entire life. What happened?
Yeah.
Who did it? You know? And so I think because of this big this big like sort of weight of romance in our storytelling, in our lives, and you know, because it is important to a lot of people, because it does inform, it does create a lot of times better moments for us, you know, as well as worse moments for us. So it's definitely a driving factor. But talking about it as if it's just another story element instead of like the end all be all, you know, it'd be like, okay, I want to talk about your levels of romance, I want to talk about your levels of violence, I want to talk about your levels of drama, conflict, you know, making sure that you let your players know, and you let your cast know, like, that there are other things that are important to you.
Yes.
And there are other things that are going to be important in the story. I feel like that really builds up expectations. And when you build expectations, you can build boundaries. When you can build boundaries, you can make a really beautiful story by knowing exactly where you can go.
Yes, to build, like, building expectations. I've been receiving a lot of like feedback recently about like, I've been having a lot of meetings with folks that I've been wanting to feature on the channel for like spotlights and things like that. And a lot of the feedback I've been receiving recently is, wow, thank you so much for setting expectations so clearly. And I sit there like, huh? You're not receiving this on the typical, and that is terrifying to me. That there are just folks out there just like, oh yeah, we'll just laissez-faire our way through safety tools and expectations and boundaries, and I'm like, no, please don't do that. Please be intentional about it. And like that, what you just said is just like honestly poetry. Like that's honestly what it comes down to. Like building expectations. With expectations, you can set boundaries, and then you can do fun. Your fun little play space where you can play, and like this is the tools you can use to play in. Because otherwise, you can look into the far off distance and go, "What if I played over there?" And then a pond actually is a giant ocean, and now you're in for it, right? So it's
Treading water,
and it's easier to prevent and mitigate than it is to kind of like come up with a solution on the fly, because once you prepared yourself, then you can deal with the situations in the moment more effectively than just going, oh well, I guess I'll do this.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
I had a really terrible experience during one of my first ever charity streams, where so we had like burning as like a line, and so a character essentially just been like, yeah, I boiled this person alive, and we were like, yes. and because technically in their mind it wasn't burning.
I can see where maybe the wires got crossed, but
yeah.
Also, oof.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad, and I was just like, "What the hell just happened?"
Yeah.
I was in a state the rest of that time, because I was like, I never had a more egregious like line break in my life.
Yeah. No, for sure. And like, that's another thing I want to see more in APs of like, maybe showing audiences that saving tools are being used. Because like we do that on Chaos Protocol, where we go like above table check-in, and we literally do this. We like put our hand on top of our heads, so like, all right, above table, how are we feeling? Because literally the most recent episode, I wasn't expecting my performance to like go into a more raw area, but it did. Where like a lot of very natural emotion came up for some of the grief that my character's experiencing. And then I was like, wow, I went in a little bit on and leaning into that emotion. Quick table check-in. How's everyone else dealing? Because that kind of just naturally came up. I want to make sure that everyone's okay now that it's out and that we're all a-okay. And I think people should use it more. Because
reminds me of a private game that we were in.
Oh yeah. Above table, are we good? Yeah. It's just good to like check in, and I think maybe the space needs to be showcasing a lot of these tools more overtly, and then maybe it seems less scary, because we were talking about I was talking this to someone else. The X, like, even though people have like the X card or the traffic light system, how many times have you actually seen someone pull it and like say something, right? Or even like a yellow and things like that, or like, ooh, like, and let's be careful, right? Maybe finding ways to like demystify and like tone down how yikes it feels to pull that card, right? Making it, because now it feels like forbidden fruit that no one wants to touch.
It was neat, because again, in one of the channels that sort of went under, I was in a Monster of the Week game. Listen, there's so much lost media now. And I'm so sad about it. No. But there's a Monster of the Week game that I was in, and that we actually I pulled an end card, because I was like, this is getting too much into memory, like manipulation, which is like, for me, like, if I'm not ready for it, I need to be ready for it, or else I get really squicked out.
Yeah.
And I was just like, please stop. I was like yellow, yellow, and this.
Yeah, no, that's so important. Tools should be used, and like that just like
Yes.
enhances the whole idea of like, hey, we should be using these tools and using them effectively, and giving people a chance to like be able to respond and communicate about things. That's a very
Flex your brain muscles and your acting muscles. Because guess what? And the next card, that's an improv challenge, mother.
That's an improv challenge. Yeah. For sure. And
change the scene.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the workshops I've done as well, when I'm talking about like safety tools, I'm like, well, if you don't, because I was trying to be like, why should you learn safety tools? And here's like people's responses of why. They're like, oh, like it'll interrupt things. I'm like, yeah, do you know what will really interrupt your flow? Is if someone is extremely upset at you in the middle of gameplay. That would be really interrupting. But if you use a safety tool, you can be like, all right, folks, let's call for a break really quick, 5 to 10 minutes, and then you can like go and chat with people and be like, hey, how are you feeling? All this. How do you want this to go forward? Right? And you can actually have that conversation. But if you decide not to use them, then you're in the position where you kind of have to be like, uh-oh, now I have to deal with all of the emotional fallout and also figuring out how to move the plot and story forward.
Yeah, another thing that'll interrupt you, your player completely leaving your fucking game.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, the player leaving your game and you disrupting, if you're playing a home game, disrupting friendships at the table. That'll really mess your flow, for sure.
Yeah.
So take care of each other. Show some kindness and grace to one another. Amazing. We've covered basically playing romance at tables. Now it's the section for audience Q&A. Folks, feel free to throw your questions into chat. We do have 3 questions, like 3 big questions here to discuss that have already been submitted. So the first question we have is, how did we first meet, and what was our first AP? I think we met at that AP, or either that or we met at that AP on Twitter at some point.
We followed each other on Twitter, and I was just like, "Wow, this person is so cool." And then I was like, "Yeah, exactly." But so I was just like, "Wow, Val is so cool." And then I was like, "Wow, Val is also trans. Val is so cool."
Literally,
because I was just like cracking my egg in 2021.
Oh, you were cracking your egg in 2021. Gotcha.
Yeah.
No, so I was looking. I don't remember all of the details super well, but I do remember I was like I was looking for more queer and trans folks to follow in the space. I know a lot of the people I know are queer and trans, but I was like, I need to find more. And I was like, I saw that you've tweeted a bunch. I recognize you from like Utopia and from Utopia stuff. And I was like, oh, now I think I got I don't remember if there was like another Victor or another Vincent. I was trying to like find whose username is whose, and I couldn't find it. And then I found you, and I was like, there you are. You're the person whose opinions I agree with tremendously. And I want to follow you and show you some support. So yeah, we met on Twitter, and knew of each other in the online space.
we were moving in the same circles.
Yes.
And then I knew Mare a bit because of, again, an old defunct channel.
Yeah.
And then it was just like, it was your birthday stream?
No, it wasn't.
Was it your birthday or Mare's birthday?
It was Mare's birthday stream, I believe.
It was Mare's birthday stream. And
it was a charity, it was like a charity drive sort of situation streams.
Yeah. Yes. And that AP was a Court of Flowers?
Yeah, Flower Court. Yeah, the Flower Court.
Flower Court.
Which is a romance-based TTRPG.
Yes, and you were like, it's a dating show, and I was just like, I'm gonna date so hard.
Yeah.
I'm gonna date so hard right now.
That was a great concept. I was so happy I thought of that one, because I was like, because I was thinking about what TTRPG to put on for that. Because Mare specifically wanted like more indie stuff, and I was still pretty new to like GMing for an AP context. So I was like, oh, okay, what can I do? And then I found this game and I was like, huh, what about the dating contest? Like I know this is meant to be like political, like moving between spheres, but like a dating show where I get to break the fourth wall and ask for donations and tips would be very fun, actually. And yeah, that's our first AP. I don't remember what we titled it. It might not even have had a title. But it is the Flower Court. I believe you can still find it on Mare's channel on YouTube. It's at Marefeather. And yeah, you played a really, really cool knight. You played like a really cool. You had a really cool horse. You had wonderful chemistry with. Oh, I'm trying to remember who specifically played the very like in other intense like warrior character.
Lady Dame.
Yeah. Oh my god, it was Lady. I was like, I'm pretty sure it's Lady Dame. I was like, it's Lady Dame.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, that's how we met. I GM'd for you. And I was like, damn, Vic is really good. I literally was like, damn, Vic is very good. I've like seen it and heard it, but I was experiencing your performance like firsthand. I was like, damn, this is a great table. Everyone, none of y'all missed. It was great. Y'all understood the assignment. But yeah, that's how we first met. It was really cute of us. And then we were like, dude, what was our next one after that? It was a while before we played together.
I don't think we played again together until a home game.
Oh my god, yeah. It was like over a year, and then we had our, our home game. Yeah. And then I was like,
moving in similar circles.
And I was like, we can't wait that long again till we play together again. So then we did They Sleep Among Stars, because I think I put a tweet out where I was like, I kind of want to do another one of Follow Me Down, and you're like, I want to play romance with you again, and I'm like, you know what? Let's do it. Nothing is stopping me, really.
We talked about trying to do an age system game. Because we want to do all mages.
Yeah. That would be really fun.
Now that I've played Age, I understand it a little bit more, so you know.
Oh. Good, because that's like one of the first few things that stops me from like starting games. I'm like, I need to spend time to understand the game,
learning the game. Yeah, listen, I get it.
Yeah. Amazing. So we've answered that question. Our next question is kind of a double header, and it is, what kind of issues did we have in pre-production, and how did we work on it, and whether we compromised or moved forward in the production. We didn't have a lot of issues. Being completely honest. Yeah, we were pretty much on the same page. The only issue we had is that we had to swap producers, and that was a not necessarily like easy surmountable problem, but we just kind of did our due diligence and made sure that like, hey, how's everyone doing? Made sure everyone was taken care of, and then we reached out to C. Asked if C had availability, and then I think some of y'all might have seen that I put a tweet out being like, hi, anyone want to do a quick turnaround production? Really quick. I pay you money. And that was, I think that was the only hiccup. What about you? Were there any issues that I'm misremembering about?
No, I think the only, not a pre-production issue, but I was having a really hard time, and I was like, oh, I need music for the second episode. And I didn't get it to you. I didn't get it to see until like 20 minutes before.
No, it was Connie. Connie was our producer for
Connie was producer for the second episode. Oh my god, I forgot that. But yeah, I didn't get the music to Connie until like 20 minutes before, and the entire time I was like, you're the worst. And I'm like, please, anxiety, shut the fuck up. I need to find music.
No, yeah, like that was, you're so valid. First off, you were so fine. We made it work. Everything was fine. And Connie is a wizard at production, so I had all the faith that we would be fine. But yeah, like that's definitely something like at tables to keep an eye out for. Is like, hiccups will happen at production. Let me tell you, hiccups will happen. Something will happen. So it's good to just be prepared and just hold grace for everybody involved. Like, just
Exactly.
Be a nice person.
Including yourself.
Including yourself.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Please
No,
be
you had
nice
a
to
busy
yourself
week
in
that week.
production.
That's why you had a rough busy week. That's what happened. And I was like, I literally was just like, legit, Vic, it's fine. Even if you don't get the music, we could just loop some of the other ones that are already here. It's fine.
I know, but I was obsessed. I was like, no, it's Dia de los Muertos.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, Dia de los Difuntos, because
yeah.
Ecuadorian.
Yeah.
And I was like, we're doing it. We're doing it live. Let's go.
And we picked great
I literally
songs.
had my partner. I had my partner on call with me before game, being like, throw stuff at me. Throw stuff at me. This is the vibe.
That's so sweet of them to help out, though. That's really cute. Oh, that's so sweet. But yeah, that's how we worked on it. It's a lot of, and even though we didn't have a lot of issues, I think one of the main reasons why we were so successful is because we like literally communicated at every step, even if it was something that was like really benign, right? It could have been like something like super small, like, hey, safety tool check-in, or like what I did for like Vic and also for like Connie and C when they were producing for us was like, hey, this is the overview of like my sections, just like in general, like just so you know what the pacing looks like. It's just being really intentional and communicating every step of the way, and that's how you are successful and set yourself up for success. Yeah, awesome. The last question is a doozy. It's also a double header. It is a doozy. Thank you, Asra, for all these incredible questions. So this question is, how do we play into flawed characters, and what drives our ability to be able to play these flawed characters? I'd like to hear your perspective.
Flaws are inherent in our people, and trying to hide them is a flaw on its own. And so again, so I talk about like honesty at the table, right?
Yes.
And so honesty doesn't really mean honest for you as a person as much as honesty for the character that you're playing. And so for Santi, right? Santi does not like himself. And that can be hard to watch. It can be hard to play. Because you have to get in that space of like, what does that mean for the character? How do you show that? And in showing that, I think you connect with people. I think you connect with, and I think that's why I do AP.
Yeah.
Because I want to connect with people in a way that is beautiful, and also I want to be a professional performer.
Yeah.
And being an actor is about transmitting stories in a way that people think about them for a while after. You know?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so for me, I play into flawed characters because everyone will recognize a flaw. Everyone will recognize the bad bits of the character. And in building up why flaws are not always the end all be all of like, oh, if you're flawed, you're done.
Yeah.
Right? That's just simply not true.
It's not true.
Every person is flawed and should still be loved.
Yes.
Even despite that.
Right?
And so that's why I play into flawed characters, because I'm just like, all right, how can I still make you love me?
Yeah.
Even though it's a problem. Right? So I don't like this character, but I think the conceit of this character is interesting. Okay. So Iron Man as a character was created on a bet that Stan Lee could make an asshole and still get people to cheer for him. That's the conceit of Iron Man.
Oh my god.
And I fucking hate Iron Man, right? But damn, does he have interesting story beats.
That's true. That's true.
Right? And so that's where I kind of take it from, of like, this character is rough around the edges. This character is they're too meek, you know, and at some points you get frustrated with meek characters.
Yes.
You know, have you ever watched Carrie, the horror movie Carrie?
Yes, I have.
So, you know, you're rooting for Carrie at the end.
Yes.
But there's definitely some points in Carrie where you're just like,
you're just tearing
tough
your
enough.
hair out. Yeah. You're just tearing your hair out.
Let's go. And so, like, and that's a way to interact with that media.
Yeah.
That character is flawed, and you are completely invested in that story because you're like, show me something else. Show me what you can be. And then they show you.
Yeah, please, for fuck's sake, be like, this gotta go in a different direction, right? Like, that's a really good point, right? About like playing flawed characters and like playing into the idea of like narrative beats, right? Frustration as an audience member to a character is a valid response, I think. Like, I think there are stories that are meant to elicit that response because then what happens after hits home a lot more. It resonates a lot stronger. And listen, flawed characters are fun, right? And if you think about every single character you've ever loved, they're all flawed. The good ones, right? All the well-written characters you enjoy in media, like classic Kovu, Zuko, you know, your bad boys who are like broody and broken. We know why we love them, right? We love them because they're flawed as well, right? We love that journey that they take. But if we look at, like, you know, Last Airbender, since we were taking the Zuko example, Aang's flawed too. Like, Aang is flawed too. He front facing is very, very good, makes a lot of good decisions, and is heartwarming and only thinks of the good of people in his heart. But he's also conflict avoidant. He's also naive to a fault, right? There are many, like, Aang refuses the call many times irresponsibly at the expense of other people, right? And like, it's a good thing to remember that like a lot of the characters you love are also flawed characters and are flawed people. That's probably part of the reason why you love them. For me, the reason why I played flawed characters is because they're more compelling, they're real, and I'm in the business of telling stories that are evocative, resonant, and real. That's my thing. And making a flawed character is a lot of fun, and they're a lot of fun to play. I mean, with Jericho, his flaws are it's not even that he's a hothead. He's like stubborn in his sort of like insecurity, right? He is so insistent on the fact that he needs to try so hard at everything, and that he doesn't realize it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in of itself. In that he has this flaw where he does things and is a fuck up and is kind of like really reckless, but then as time goes on, he's like, oh, I don't want to be reckless anymore, so I'm going to keep trying hard and doing the extremes again, not realizing that he's just putting himself into a state of consistent failure by doing that, and by not giving himself the grace to be wrong and be flawed and be aware of it, that he does himself a disservice. And that's another thing about flawed characters, actually, is like a character can be aware that they're flawed. Because people are aware that they're flawed. I'm sure you yourself as a person know that, like, oh, hey, maybe you might have like anger issues, or maybe you realize that you get like irritable, or you're prone to catastrophizing something, right? People have normal flaws. People have these, right? And oftentimes you are aware of it. Doesn't mean you change overnight just because you're aware of it. And I think that's part of the joy of the journey. And and a lot of what drives my performance of like flawed characters is my end goal is to show that, like, hey, a lot of my stories, love is at the center of it, whether it's self-love, community love, or romantic love. And it's like, this character can be love in spite of, because of, and alongside their flaws. Because just because they grow as a person and they develop doesn't mean their flaws go away. Sometimes you develop new ones. Progress is not linear. Sometimes some aspect of the flaw still exists because we are only human. And what is more human than telling stories about humanness and brokenness, right? So,
exactly.
and it's fun. It's good. That's why we do it. That's why we do it, because it's compelling.
Yes. I also do it sometimes just because the people I'm playing with, I know will like hold that and then throw it back at me.
Yes, because again, like there are interesting stories you can tell with like perfection and the idea of perfection and being good in spite of everything that's thrown in your direction. There's another piece of IP right now that I am also having brain rot, written by the same author of the earlier one that I was telling you about. Same author. She has themes. But it's called Heaven Official's Blessing. It's on Netflix. It's an animated show. And there is a book series. But Heaven Official's Blessing, the main character is considered to be like extremely kind. He's loving, warm-hearted. It seems like he's just a good guy, a sweet, sweet guy that only cares for the good of everyone. But then you're like, okay, but is he just perfect? And it is compelling still, even though he's perfect, because everyone responds to his perfection in a very interesting and contrasting way of like, oh, but you've been demoted from heaven several times and we fucking hate you because we think you're a failure, right? But we as the audience are like, but he's so great, what's going on? And then we see the flaws and the conflict that like this character's flaws that exist, and at some point sometimes the flaws can be endearing because they remind you that this person's a person. They're not this disconnected thing from us. They're still one with us. And that's fun, and it's also fun to see how everyone else responds to your flaw and to your goodness, right? Like, that's how conflict happens, baby. And conflict is the heartbeat of every storytelling experience. Yeah. Amazing.
Look up there. There's a bird. There's a tree. That's boring.
That's boring. I love that quote. I'm gonna have that in my head constantly. Because like, we're not here to capture the mundane, right? Some stories do. Like, there's some playwrights that are like, we're gonna show you the mundanity of like human experience, and that's fine. That's not necessarily the story that I'm telling. I want to tell dramatic, evocative stories. I want y'all to sit in your room at 3 a.m. at night dreaming about a very specific scenario with my Borbos. That's my dream and my hope whenever I make stories. Is that y'all sit down and come away from that scene, interrogate that, reflect on that, and then go, oh, interesting, I've come up with a new conclusion from thinking about this piece of media, right? But yeah, any other thoughts on that? It seems that we do not have any other questions. Last call for questions, folks, before we wrap things up. Do you have any other thoughts, Vic, as we're waiting for our last call of questions in the chat?
I'm really grateful to done this with you. Both this AP and like this Talkback.
Absolutely, same. I'm always happy and grateful to share a table with you and to craft. There is an incredible beauty to making stories with people that just get it. Like, listen, I joke about this all the time. Making stories with gay, queer people, trans, who are folks of color, hits different. And if I'm at a table that's like majority straight or majority white people, first of all, that's not me. Something horribly wrong has happened. But
Val has been press ganged and we must save him.
Yeah, we must save me. No, because when you are at a table of like folks of similar experience or who just get it, it hits different. And that's always how I feel when I'm performing alongside you. We've got more coming up. This is not the last time we're gonna have you on the channel and have us play games together. Honestly, it's just a matter of funding and planning and scheduling. to get more APs or SpiritBear APs out there, because and this is just good stuff for the audience to know. I want to make sure that every AP that I put out is funded and that people are getting paid for it. I do not want to put up APs that are for free unless it's for charity. Unless everyone's like A-okay to be like, hi, let's raise funds for charity. But even then, I still want to pay y'all. That is my philosophy.
That's very fair.
Yeah, it's my philosophy, and y'all deserve to get paid for your labor. Amazing. It seems that we do not have any other questions. Thank you all so much for being here and for hanging out with us. Thank you for enjoying the Sleep Among Stars Talkback episode. Before we do all of our wrapping up stuff, Vic, please tell us who you are, what you do, where people can find you, and shout out all of your cool projects for people to keep an eye out on.
So, once again, my name is Victor. I am a ttrpg performer, designer, writer. I wear many hats.
Sure do.
But right now, coming up in February and March is a bunch of games that I'm gonna be in. I have an upcoming Cypher game with Dax as the GM.
Oh, I'm familiar with that one. I know about that one.
Guess what, buddy? I'm gonna be a shark merman.
Yeah.
Because I love sharks so much.
I do love sharks.
Yeah, they're my favorite animal. I could rant about them forever. I have my tomorrow night game is gonna be a return from season, for our season 2 of Miss Lost. Where we're gonna have like outfit reveals. We have new portraits for our characters and everything. And we're gonna be coming back with Entre Luna y Sol in February, and there is another. Oh, and I'm gonna be on a Sword and Key game, coming up in March too. Yeah. Trophy Dark.
That's exciting. Oh, that's really, really exciting. Yeah. Oh, that's so many cool things. Thank you so much for being here with me for the EP and for this Talkback. I'll introduce myself and keep y'all do our ending spiel as always. Hi everyone, I'm ValiantDorian, also known as Otso SpiritBear. You can find me all on the internet at ValiantDorian or at Otso SpiritBear. Please enjoy that lovely treasure hunt to set you on. And tonight I was your host. I was giving y'all perspective on Jericho and on They Sleep Among Stars. In terms of stuff you could keep an eye out for me, well, first off, in February, the Beast Within's Quick Start Guide should be out in probably middle to end of February. We're going to be releasing the Quick Start Guide to the Beast Within. You can go and check out this game. It is a narrative-first action RPG reminiscent of 80s and 90s grunge fighting games, but you play werbeasts. If you're into that, go and check out my itch page. There's a pre-order store. And a great way to keep up to date on developmental updates. There's also the crowdfunder link that's also attached to the itch.io store. And for Beast Within, we are running playtests. If you want to sign up for that, please go and check out the forum that I've just linked there in the chat to go and join us for playtesting. If you're part of my Discord, you do get priority. And we're about to start our mini campaign playtesting so that we can playtest advancement and making sure that advancement works. I do not want to have a broken advancement system because that would suck. So that's Beast Within and the playtesting. If you are a game designer, and you want to be featured and have your work featured, please come and join me on Designer Spotlight and sign up on our Google form. We've got a bunch of folks coming up. I'm so excited to showcase all of them and all of their works to y'all. So please consider checking us out. We do have a special announcement for Designer Spotlight in a second, but before that, I'm going to announce that Transparent RPG is back this weekend, Saturday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Chaos Protocol's next episode is coming up, and we're going to the City of Heaven. Check out Strike Team Nova goes to the City of Heaven into our Ciencia setting, and obviously everything's fine, right? And Sayer is completely coping with his feelings in a normal and measured way. Don't worry about it. And I'm looking forward to seeing y'all on Saturday.
Or you are.
You're sitting there like, yeah, sure you are.
I literally said that under my breath.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure you are. Liar.
Liar. And on the topic of designer spotlight that I mentioned earlier, folks, big announcement. I'm going to be tweeting it immediately after this. But tomorrow night, we are having a special guest. His name is Ethan of the Lunar Rest. We'll be doing a designer spotlight on him and his game Mythical Worlds. It is a game engine to simulate being able to introduce ttrpgs for beginners, intermediate, and veteran gamers. It is meant to be sort of this customizable gaming experience, and we're going to be chatting with Ethan all about it tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern. So I'm looking forward to seeing you all here for the designer spotlight to talk about Mythical Worlds. And with that, let us go and raid someone before. Do not touch that dial, folks, as we go and send some love elsewhere. I believe Bad House RPG were streaming. There they are. I'm like, wait a second, they were here. So they're doing I believe their penultimate episode of Madness Over Manila, their Vampire the Masquerade game. So go ahead and give them some love as we go and rate them. And with that, thank you all so much for being here, and I hope you all take care and have fun. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.